How y'all doing? My name is Connor Middendorf.
Talking to the men at the Genesis Men's Home is what Connor Middendorf calls one of his favorite things to do.
We just thank you for the freedom that you are going to give us in our lives, God.
Partly because, for a time, he called this place his prison.
I wanted to leave my first month.
But mostly because, for years, he called the streets his home.
I was sleeping behind a gas station and behind the air conditioning unit, and just like made a little pallet with blankets, and this is where I was.
The Genesis Men's Home is a place for men who want a change in their lives. Many are homeless, drug addicts, and guys who need a second chance. For Connor, this was his last hope.
I guess the judge knew about it. She had heard of it. She's like, I've heard of that. You know what? And she made a deal with me. She said, look, if you can graduate that program, if you can get out, if you stay in that program, I'll let you off probation early. She kept good on her word.
Connor was facing 11 years in prison for drug-related charges. He began smoking weed at 12 years old. Numbing the pain of an abusive stepfather led to more drugs.
At my worst, I was IV using drugs, daily.
More drugs led to rebellion. And finally, his mother kicked him out of the house he grew up in. He was 16 years old. Connor says when you're living on the streets, you have to keep moving. It's the best way to stay warm and find food.
If it wasn't for the handout of actually a coat and a tent from somebody that helped me out, they gave me a coat and a bag and a tent and said, here you go, you need this more than I do.
Recovery is never easy. But for the man who had to keep moving to stay warm, the Genesis Men's Home was a lifeline.
Because God has something for you here, man. You have to stick it out. And when you feel a certain way about yourself, that's what you give yourself. So if you don't feel like you're worth anything, then you're gonna give yourself lesser because you don't feel like you're even worth anything more than that. Coming here gave me an opportunity to actually sit down and process all of that. And to say, okay, well, you know what? You made some mistakes, but you know what? Here's God offering you an opportunity to redeem yourself. And he's gonna redeem you and he's gonna make you better.
Connor learned how to cope with past pain, and his relationship with Jesus prepared him for his greatest challenge.
It was bittersweet for me. While I was in the program, my mother was diagnosed with brain cancer. I wasn't able to make it to my graduation date because I was taking care of her full time. My mother was so proud of me, and just the relief and the happiness in her eyes before she got to go, man, it's priceless. I can't put into words what that feels like.
Today, Connor's employed, going to Bible college, majoring in Christian counseling, and living in the house where he grew up. He's thankful that the Genesis Men's Home was available to give him an opportunity to change his life, especially when he didn't have the resources to do so on his own. So after graduation, he donated the cost of his rehabilitation back to Joyce Meyer Ministries' missions arm, Hand of Hope.
If God can do it in my life, I have to allow that to continue going. And if paying my program fees in any way, type of way, continues to help Genesis Men's Home continue on, then I want to do that.